Hello friends, welcome to our channel Knowledge Amplifier. So today in this particular video, we are going to explore one interesting concept related to Docker, and this situation we might encounter frequently. So just sharing with you if this particular concept help you in your day-to-day data engineering workloads if you are working with Docker. Okay. So suppose here I am having a S3 bucket where all my Python files are uploaded. Okay. And suppose here I am having my host machine. Within host machine, we are creating a Docker file. And from that Docker file, if we build it, Docker image will be created. And from that image, if we run it, Docker container will be created, right? Now, generally what we do in the Docker file, first we configure any base image, for example, from Python 3.7 or something like that. Then we copy all the files from our host machine to the Docker runtime environment, which is nothing but an isolated execution environment. And then as part of the next step, generally we configure that particular directory where we copied as working directory. Then we do all the requirements module installation, that is run pip install -r requirements.txt, that command we execute. And then at the end, we run our actual command, maybe python app.py, that can be a service which is running 24/7 kind of an website, or that can be a batch job just run to compute something, and once the computation is done, the container can be terminated. Okay, so this is a typical code flow, right? Now here at the second step, what we are doing, we are copying all the files whatever is available in our host to a particular Docker directory which is inside our Docker container. Now suppose in your case, all files, Python files, whatever you want to execute as part of the last command, they are available in S3. So ideally, how you should write the Docker file? First line should be the particular Python base image what you want to pick up. Then as part of the next step, you need to download all the files from this S3 location to your Docker execution environment or current working directory, right? So that how to do? For that, we need AWS CLI. So we need to make sure we are running some command using which AWS CLI we are installing in the Docker environment. And then as part of the next step, we will execute AWS S3 cp command to copy all the files from S3 to our Docker environment. And then we can execute requirements.txt installation. And then finally, based on the downloaded file, we can run our Python file. So these are extra steps what we need to execute if our Python files or executable files are available in S3 or in external system, right? So what I'm trying to say, many times in our day-to-day activity, we might need to connect with various AWS services from within the Docker file, right? This is just one sample use case. Like this, many use cases you might face in your day-to-day work. Cool. Now here, to do that, like AWS CLI installation is fine, but to execute AWS S3 cp command, you have to do one more thing. That is that particular Docker environment where this image is getting built, their AWS integration with that system should be set up. And that we generally do by configuring the environment. AWS access key, AWS secret key, AWS region. These values we need to configure as environmental variable if we are executing this kind of AWS command line code. So from where these environmental variables I might get? It might be possible that in your host machine, where you have created the Docker file and you are building the image, in that host machine, in that particular environment, these AWS access key, secret key, and then regions are configured. So what we need to do? We need to pass those environmental variables within our Docker file when we are building that image. Okay. It is not necessary that those variables should be available within the container also. Try to understand why I am saying this. It is like when from the Docker file we are building that image, that time we might need to connect with AWS to download the Python files. So at that particular instance, when the image build is going on, that time only we might need to set up the integration with that system and AWS. So there we need AWS access key, secret key, the region name. Okay. But suppose once the image is built, when we will run our container, there already the Python file is available. So if the Python file don't need to interact with AWS, there is no meaning to keep AWS access key, secret key and region as configured environmental variable within this container. Okay, so we need to implement such mechanism where from the host environment some values or environmental variable we can pass, and that our Docker file will use only in the image build process. But once the image build is complete, that is once our container is ready to run, that time those environmental variables whatever we have passed, that should not be accessible. That is the lifespan of those variables whatever we are passing from host machine to our Docker, that should be only in the build process, that is only in this location. Okay, how to do that? On that we are going to explore in detail in this particular session. Okay, I hope the problem statement we understood. Now without any further delay, let's quickly jump into the implementation section. So here I am having some Python codes which I already discussed in my previous video. That is a simple Flask app basically we have created, and this is the code. Here you can see we are importing all the necessary modules, although NumPy and pandas not needed. We are just installing to show you that requirements.txt is working properly. And then if someone is making a GET request to our resource path, it will return hello world. Okay, so let's see our requirements.txt, Flask, pandas, NumPy. These are the three modules what we need, and we are having test.py as well, which is currently empty. So here you can see it is 0 KB file. Okay, so now these all files whatever we will run within our Docker container, suppose those are available in some S3 location. Okay, so let's upload those. So here I will go to S3, and here I will go to blue zip, and then here I will go to create folder, and folder name I will give demo yt test docker set, and with this I will simply create this folder. So here I will search for it, and here is my folder, and then here what I will do, I will upload all my important files whatever is runnable, those will upload in our S3 location. Okay, so when the Docker image will be building, that time from S3 these files should be downloaded, and only for that time when image build is going on, that time in between Docker and AWS environment the integration should be set up using access key and secret key. But as you can easily understand that to run our app.py we no need that access key and secret key. So what I'm trying to say, within our container those keys should not be accessible, only in image build process that is needed. Again and again I am repeating because this is important, and that's how this approach will work. Okay, so step 1 we have completed. Now let's go to the step 2. This is our Docker file. What we are doing, first let's consider the known lines. Like first we are taking a Python base image, then we are copying everything from our current host machine to the app folder. We are defining our app folder as working directory, and then here we are basically doing pip install requirements.txt, and we are running our python app.py, this command. Whenever we launch our container, this command will run. Okay, right? That way our Flask app will be spinned up. Cool. So here, because my codes are available in S3, so as I told you, I need AWS CLI. So in this particular base image, AWS CLI is not available. So what we need to do, we need to install AWS CLI when the Docker image build process is going on. So these 3 lines of code is doing that activity. It is installing Docker CLI in our Docker image. Okay, so that way we can easily execute AWS S3 cp command. What we are doing, we are copying all files from our S3 location to the current working directory, that is app folder within our Docker. Okay, so here I will take that particular S3 location wherever we have uploaded, and here I am going to paste that particular code. So with this, more or less our code is ready. These 3 lines I have not explained yet. I will come to that. Bear with me for some time. So as a first step, what we are going to do, we are going to launch one EC2 instance where we will be running our Docker, and there we will host our Flask app using this particular Docker. Okay, so here what I will do, I will open AWS Management Console in a new tab, and here I will launch one EC2 machine here. So here I will go to EC2, and instance running I will click, launch instance, demo yt arg docker, some name I have given, and let it be Linux machine. Here this particular filter eligible one I will choose. Let it be T2 micro, not a problem. Key pair file I will choose test CI/CD, and keeping all the other properties as default, I will simply launch my instance. Okay, So here currently our instance is in pending state. Now here I'll go to security section, and here in the security group I will update the policy so that from anywhere IPv4 location the Flask app will be accessible. So here I'll choose all traffic, and anywhere IPv4 I'll save this. That is done. I'll go back to my EC2 machine. And here you can see currently our instance is running still. I'll copy the public IP, and here I will open putty, and I will try to do SSH init using this access key. Okay. So test CI/CD is the one. I'll open that. Click on open. Click on yes, and log in as EC2 user. Okay, right? So now what we'll do, we'll install Docker init. So for that, here already I have discussed the comments. First we need to update everything. If it is not updated yet, then we will install Docker. And then we will start the service. Let's wait for a few seconds to let it get installed everything. So here it is completed. Now I will start the service, and along with that I'll make sure that it is not having any property issue. So I'll copy this particular code and paste that. Okay, so with this it is done. I'll just close the putty console just to make sure all the policies are updated, and I will again use putty to do SSH init. I'll open this and log in as EC2 user. Connection value I will change to 10 seconds. I'll apply this, and with this it is done. Now here what I need to do, I need to create the Docker file. So for that, first what I will do, I will create a directory. I don't want to create the Docker files and all the installation in my root level. So mkdir hello Docker, this command I will execute. If I do ls, here you can see hello Docker is there. I'll just simply do cd hello Docker. Okay, right? And now here I'll create my Docker file. So here vi, and here Docker file. I'll go to insert mode, and here this is my code. Okay, so I'll paste that, and here I will do write and quit. So if I do ls now, we are having Docker file. Okay, cool. Now suppose here Docker file, this one if we directly run, obviously it is going to throw an error that this particular AWS S3 CP command it will not able to execute. The reason is from within the Docker container we will not have AWS S3 access. Okay, so for that in our host machine I am going to configure 3 environmental variables: access key, secret key, and default region. Okay, so here I will maybe click on accounts, and from there I will create security credentials for my root level. So here I'll scroll below, and here I'll click on create access key. I'll confirm this, create access key, and here it is going to give me access key and secret. So here in host machine, that is in our EC2, I'll basically configure this environmental variable. Okay, my S3 bucket is in US East 1 North Virginia region, so that I'll configure, and with this I will quickly execute all these 3 export commands. Okay, cool, that is done. Now here we can run our Docker file, and there comes the importance of these 3 ARG. Okay, so generally when we build the image, we generally execute docker build -t welcome app dot. What it will do, in the current working directory it will try to find out the Docker file, and it will use the Docker file to create the image. Okay, but here what we need to do, while running the Docker file, we need to pass these kind of environmental variables from our host machine to within our Docker execution platform, where it is basically creating that particular image or executing all these codes. And when the image build process is going on, that time alone from within our Docker environment these variables should be accessed, and once the image build process is complete, these variables should not be accessible. Okay, right? So what change we can do in the Docker build code? So let me first run this particular code. Obviously we are going to get error, that I just want to show you. because in the middle we are doing AWS S3 CP command, and from within Docker it will not able to access, although in the host machine those variables are configured, that is host machine perfectly able to interact with AWS S3, but from within Docker where the image build process is going on, there those environmental variables from host machine will not be accessible. So that's why this particular Docker image build process will fail, right? And to avoid failure, what we'll do, we are going to pass the environmental variables from our host machine to the Docker build process using this command. Okay, what we have to do, we have to pass Docker build build arg. Okay, that is when the image build process is going on, that time alone from the host machine I want to pass these variables to the Docker environment, and that is called argument. Here we are passing AWS access key ID, AWS secret key, and the another one is default region. Okay, so using $AWS default region, or using $AWS access key ID, or using $AWS secret access key, it will basically get the environmental variables from host and it will pass in the build process as argument, and those arguments we are capturing here. Okay, so these will be acting as a environmental variable only in the image build process. Once the image build process is complete, this access key, secret key, default region, nothing will be accessible from within the container. Okay, when we will run it, only in the image build process these variables will be accessible, and we are passing from the host machine environmental variable within Docker using this kind of build-args command. Okay, right? So here you can see our normal Docker command failed, unable to locate credential, because here AWS S3 CP we are doing, and within that particular Docker environment the access key, secret key and region is not configured, so it failed. Now what we'll do, we will try to build the image using this particular command. So that's the beauty of build-args. We can pass some environmental variables from host machine to our Docker when the image build process is going on. Once the image build is done, those files will be downloaded in local environment from S3. The container to run the Flask app, it not at all need those access key and secret key. So automatically Docker will not allow those things, because that's how ARG works. ARG variables are only accessible during the image build process. Okay, so here you can see that it successfully downloaded. Okay, earlier in this download process we got error, but this time if you see here, this all test.py, requirements.txt and then app.py, our original file, all it downloaded. And once the download is successful, it is going to get all the files in the Docker image itself. Then it has no problem to execute requirements.txt or app.py when we will spin up the container. Okay, so here once the image build is done, I will just show you. Now it is done, I'll just clear everything, and here I will execute docker image ls, and here you can see, here we are having the welcome app, latest one 20 seconds ago created. Cool. Now here, as part of the next step, we are going to run our container docker run. Port mapping we are doing as we discussed earlier. Our by default Flask app is going to run in the Docker container 5000 port. From that container port, we are mapping to the host port 5000, and we'll expect to get the response from the host port. Okay, so here let's see whether our app is running or not. I'll copy this particular public IP, and here I will make a get request in the 5000 port. Okay, so let's see. So here it is throwing some error message, bad request version. So the security things are updated. Yeah, it is updated. So let's see, is there any issue or not. So this is our app.py, where it is running in port 5000. Message bad request. So let me just come out of this container, docker container ls. Let's execute this command. Currently no container is running. I will try to run my app. So here it should be accessible to port 5000. Let's see. So here I'll go to EC2 dashboard instance, and here this is our instance. I'll copy the public IP, colon 5000. So here you can see beautifully we are getting hello world. Maybe due to some local network issue or something, some timeout, some sort of thing happened for which it was not replying. So here you can see it is throwing hello world, right? So that's what our Flask app is ultimately doing. I can close this one and paste again, and here you can see it is giving hello world. Even I can show you in incognito window. Here also it is working. That means our app is perfectly working, and here the code are not available in our host machine. We cannot simply execute copy everything from host machine to the app directory. Here it is downloading in the image build process itself from S3, and then it is running the container. Okay, right? I can show you that also. So here I will duplicate this particular session, and here I will log in as PC2 user, and then here I'll do ls, I'll do cd hello docker, and here if I execute docker container ls, here you can see our docker container id is this one. So we can enter in this docker container also using one particular command, and that is docker exec it, where we have to put our container id. So here this is our container id. I'll copy that, and here I'll paste that here, and here I will simply execute this command to enter within the container, and we will open sh, that is shell script, that command line interface I want to give. So here we entered within the container, which is built based on the image whatever we have created, and here if I do echo $, and let's maybe try to access some environmental variable whatever we have passed in the argument, maybe access key id. Here if I pass, here we will get nothing. Okay, so arguments are only accessible in the environmental variable during the image build process. It is not accessible once the image build process is complete. That is, suppose our container is running, that time we cannot access the access. Okay, so I hope the Docker argument concept is clear to you. This is a very vital concept. In our next section, we'll explore how to use this in GitHub action. That time you will feel the power of this particular concept along with the CI/CD. So this is all for this video. We will catch up in the next section. Thank you.